Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bitter Pill. Today I wanted to talk about an issue that's been on my mind a lot lately, and, you know, it's on a lot of people's minds because of the Derek Chauvin trial concluding the other day. And, you know, fortunately, a guilty verdict, at least in my opinion, fortunately, a guilty verdict was announced. He was found guilty of all three charges against him: second and third degree murder, and I believe it was second degree manslaughter. I'm not sure what second degree manslaughter means, but anyway, that was a positive outcome. But on the very uh, same day, at almost the same time, that the verdict in Derek Chauvin's trial for the murder of George Floyd uh, concluded with the verdict being announced, in Columbus, Ohio, there was another police killing of a young black girl, in this case, 16-year-old girl named Ma'Khia Bryant. And I want to share my thoughts about that incident, which, it's definitely a less clear cut black and white sort of situation than the Derek Chauvin's killing with the assistance of his three fellow officers of George Floyd in Minneapolis. So, and what I mean by that is that, uh, I mean, at least in my opinion, we can say without any doubt that Derek Chauvin intentionally tried to kill George Floyd uh, for no good reason. At least in the case of, um, gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the cop in Columbus's shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant. There's an argument in favor of uh, lethal force being used, in that it was a case where she was wielding a knife against another girl at the time. But, I want to delve into what the reaction to that incident was, and why I think it happened, and also talk about whether things needed to turn out the way they did. And, you might not agree with my conclusion about this, and that's okay, but I want to share my reasoning and talk about uh, just generally what I think is wrong with policing in the United States, and the fact that the problem is not just a few bad apples like Derek Chauvin. And I've talked about this before when I talked about the uh, protests against police killings last summer in an earlier episode. But anyway, let me. Let's see. That's not what I want. Okay, I'll just stay with this for right now. Actually. Okay, so Michael Reardon is the police officer's name, and he was just one of several cops who showed up as a result of a call they got from uh, an unknown caller, but it's believed to be the family of Ma'Khia Bryant said, and other people have said, that Ma'Khia herself was the person who uh, called 911, and the reason for the call was at the home she was living at. She was in a foster home at the time. She said, or whoever called said, that there were people there causing commotion, threatening uh, herself and her grandmother, I believe, and other people and brandish knives against them. And so shortly after that, police officers show up, and the officer who uh, engaged in the shooting, Michael Reardon, emerged from his car. There was body cam video that was released a few hours afterwards from his body camera. So he pulls up and he runs quickly over to where there's an altercation taking place outside the home, which Ma'Khia was involved in, and a girl got shoved down. And you know, immediately upon arriving at the scene from his car, Reardon pulled out his pistol, and then shortly after that, the girl Ma'Khia went over toward a car that was parked in the driveway where there was a girl wearing a pink jumpsuit who had apparently been involved in all of this, wielding a knife. And there's this iconic image that you see everywhere on Twitter. That people are posting this, taken from the body cam of her holding up the knife as if she's going to stab the girl in pink. Leading up to this, you hear on the body cam audio Officer Reardon yelling, or first saying "what's going on" a couple of times, and then he yells "hey, hey, hey, hey" 4 times, and then he yells "get down, get down, get down, get down" 4 times. I forget exactly where he starts to say that, but I believe it's as he sees Ma'Khia rushing over to the car, holding a knife. And I'm guessing that the reason why he drew his gun in the first place was because he saw her with a knife when he got there. And he was standing maybe 5 or 6 feet away from her at that point. And then she goes over to the car, so she's maybe 15 feet away. And it appears that, basically what I think the meaning of it saying "get down, get down, get down" is to encourage everybody there to get out of the way so he can have a clear shot at Ma'Khia in case he needs to use his gun to stop her. He needs to shoot her. And then he shoots her 4 times, and she dies pretty quickly. Okay, so that's basically what happened. And one other thing I should mention that happened is as there's a crowd gathering around, obviously really distraught over what's happened, especially the family members of Ma'Khia's that were there. Her aunt was there, I believe, and I forget who else. I don't know if her mother was there at the time. I believe there was somebody who was probably her father there, who because he said "you shot my baby" or something to that effect. Anyway, there's also a group of officers, about 100 feet, 50 feet away, maybe behind some police tape. And again, I think I mentioned there were several officers there besides Reardon, but he was the only one who intervened, and I'm not sure why that was. But anyway, so there's a group of bystanders talking, and then farther off in the distance, you can just barely make out the officers talking, and one of them says, "Blue Lives Matter." Imagine there's this traumatized crowd of people who've just seen a girl get gunned down, uh, black girl get gunned down, and the crowd is overwhelmingly black as well. And then this cop says blue lives matter. You know, when it's a black life that has been taken. And understandably, the people gathered there are very offended. And anyway, it just kind of illustrates a mentality that's very common uh, among law enforcement officials, unfortunately. So, I'm not going to show you the video because last episode, I showed you a video of the shooting of Adam Toledo in Chicago, and YouTube slapped a warning on the video and wouldn't let anybody view it unless they certified they were over 18. So I'm just going to give you a link to the video. I'm not going to show it this time. But I do want to show you a couple of still images from it. So this was right before he shot her. There she is holding the knife, and this girl in a pink tracksuit is cowering over by the car. So, obviously he thinks that she's going to stab her, as did presumably lots of people on the scene. And so it's at that point that he shoots her 4 times and she dies. So everybody focuses on who I've seen talking about this on Twitter, focuses on this one image. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people, even people just make a tweet where they've included this image and as if to say, end of argument. He had to shoot her. Have you seen the video? Some say. And meanwhile, they only focus on this one moment from the interaction and not the whole sequence of events leading up to it. But, let's look at another image from the body cam video from 3 seconds earlier. Okay, so this is looking down the street in the opposite direction from where the car is. And what do you see here? What's this over on the bottom right? It's his gun. And he has drawn it prior to any apparent attempted stabbing taking place. Presumably he's seen the knife, so maybe that's what he's up to here. But, he hasn't considered any other options. The first thing he does when he arrives at the scene of the first altercation, where a girl was shoved down by an adult man who was involved in the conflict, and Ma'Khia's there as well, and it's hard to tell from the body cam video, but perhaps she's threatening this girl on the ground with the knife. And I should mention that she's the one who called the police, as far as we know at this point. According to several witnesses, she's the one who called because there were other people threatening her and other people in the home with a knife. But in any case, like, why is this the very first thing he considers doing at this point, a bit over 3 seconds before he fires shots? He's already got his gun out, not his taser, not pepper spray. Didn't try to grab her because she had his back to him, I believe. So he could have done that without getting stabbed. But he's got his gun out right away. So, you know, the point I want to make about the way that so many people are reacting to this incident is that they're just focusing on this one part of the sequence of events. Nothing else. That's all that matters to people. Um, and the fact that this particular still image is shown so often in news accounts and um, appended to Twitter uh, tweets so often that it just kind of takes over people's reactions to the whole affair. So for a lot of people, the logic is, well, she's about to stab the girl in pink. What about the girl in pink? Don't you want to see her not get stabbed? And if he hadn't shot, she. A lot of people say she would definitely have killed uh, the girl in pink, which I'm not sure how anybody can have that degree of certainty about somebody attacking somebody else with a knife. Um, it certainly is the case that knives are pretty deadly weapons. Even somebody not very skilled in a knife with a knife can kill you with it if they happen to stab the right place, like a big artery or something. Um, and certainly defending against knife attacks isn't easy. So I don't want to make the argument that Reardon was such a chicken shit. He is an adult man, and she's just a 16-year-old, albeit large girl. Um, so what a coward that he didn't intervene at all. Himself, hand to hand. Um, you know, I can understand somebody being reluctant. Uh, Although, I don't think she even realized he was there. I never saw her react to him. Um, but, you know, certainly if somebody with a knife is aware that you're there, it's not an easy matter to disarm them without getting stabbed yourself if you try to engage in hand to hand or hand to knife combat. Um, So this isn't a black and white cut and dry situation where the cop had an easy decision to make, and he may genuinely have thought that he was doing the right thing by pulling out his gun, um, prepared to shoot if he deemed it necessary, and then he did shoot. Um, but he's already made a decision about how to respond to the situation before the point at which he shot her by several seconds, by drawing his gun at the moment that he showed up um, instead of, say, his taser or pepper spray or something like that. And the way he interacted with the crowd, I thought was very ineffective. So when he came up, he said, "What's going on?" a couple of times to nobody in particular. Um, he didn't address a specific person at any point in the interaction. Then he yelled, "Hey, hey, hey, hey," 4 times. Then he yelled, "Get down," again 4 times. He repeated that. So he's telling people to get out of the way so he can have a clear shot at Ma'Khia if he needs to take her out, basically. Um, and then he fires 4 shots. So many people are saying he did what he had to do to save the girl in pink. He's a hero for saving her, etc., and just refused to even consider a possibility that had he or the other officers who were there done something different, maybe nobody would have died. Maybe. And I have to raise the issue here of the possibility of racial bias. Maybe even among people of color themselves, in the way people react to such incidents. Um, just judging from the conversations I've seen, uh, her well-being seems to be of much lesser importance than the well-being of the girl who was on the receiving into the knife threat. It's not just that people don't consider the possibility of nobody dying. It's more that because they've seen Ma'Khia do something that they would regard as unethical, and so would I. She was, at least at that particular moment, the aggressor with a potentially lethal weapon. Uh, but because of that, they care less what happens to her. And one has to wonder, would that have been the case to that extent if she had been white? And would Reardon have been as likely to draw his gun rather than do something else if she had been white? We don't know, but statistically speaking, it's more common for people of color to be killed by police in the United States than white people. More white people are killed simply because there are just more white people, but proportionately, more black and Latino, to some extent, Native American individuals are killed at a higher rate than white people or Asians either. And it's also interesting how often in conversations and news accounts about this incident that Ma'Khia was described as a woman rather than a girl. And that's actually a bias that's been observed in terms of how black females are generally regarded. There's a news report, a report, a study that shows that an aspect of racial bias is that black girls are very often, and black boys too. Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old who was murdered in Cleveland a few years back by police, was also talked about as if he were an adult. Certainly Michael Brown, 18-year-old kid, killed by cops in St. Louis, was talked about that way. So folks kind of deny teenage African Americans their childhood and treat them as if they were adults, particularly if they appear to have done something wrong. Okay, but back to the question of whether it was possible that something different could have happened here. I mentioned that Officer Reardon never said anything like, "Hey, who called in this incident, and could you talk to me?" He didn't, when he saw that Ma'Khia was threatening somebody, say to her, "Hey, stop, put down your knife. I've got a gun. I will shoot if you don't put it down." Something direct and specific like that. Because it didn't appear to me that she even noticed he was there, because she was, perhaps very angry that her home had been invaded and these people had threatened her. So it doesn't appear to me that this police officer has had any sort of real training in de-escalating conflicts. Sorry. Police officers in general don't get that. They get very little training in general, but certainly not much training about how to deal with conflicts. Not really any significant training as far as mental health issues. So they're not necessarily that well prepared for dealing with incidents like this. And again, going back to this point in the sequence of events, you know, he's decided he's going to deal with this with a gun or threatening with a gun, immediately from jump. You know, never considered any other options. Well, what other options did he have? If you Google around, you can find lots of examples of police actually using such other options. Not the one I wanted to show you. Police subdue man with machete in New Orleans. Knife-wielding man comes after Riverhead cop, subdued with a taser and arrested. And I found dozens of examples of police officers using tasers to subdue people threatening other people or threatening the cops, perhaps, with a knife. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let me just actually show you one of these. Not sure why it's not showing up. Okay, here we go. I'm not sure if I want to make this full screen, but I just want to play this for you. So the officer says to the suspect, I'm going to put you in handcuffs for now, okay?
I'm going to put you in handcuffs for now, okay?
Cops say Ferguson pulled a knife and stabbed the deputy in the neck.
You stabbed me! He's got a knife!
The young man takes off again.
Stop! Stop right now!
You can see the deputy's pistol in his hand, but he switches it for a non-lethal taser.
Drop the knife! I'm going to put you in handcuffs for now.
Okay, so what happened there is, he tried to handcuff a suspect, the cop did, and the suspect pulled out a knife and slashed him in the neck, then took off running. So the cop's running after him, has his gun drawn at first, but then he decides, I don't really want to kill this guy. He's, just running away. Yeah, he hurt me, but I don't think he's going to kill anybody. So I'll take out my taser. Pulls out his taser and shoots the guy with a taser, and he's incapacitated, and he's easily able to take the knife away. Let's go back to... Oh, not what I wanted to show you yet. So yeah, there are lots of examples of police using tasers to incapacitate suspects. They can use pepper spray. Here's what they do sometimes in Vietnam. Let's see, where is it? Not finding it. I'm not going to show you all of this, but just a little bit of it. This is pretty cool. Not something that, oops, not sure why that happened. Not something that American cops are really capable of, for the most part, but in Vietnam, the police are pretty badass with hand-to-hand combat.
Trong khi một chiến sĩ cảnh sát xuống trinh sát và nắm bắt tình hình với địa bàn, phát hiện đối tượng có biểu hiện nghi vấn, chiến sĩ của ta đã yêu cầu dừng lại để kiểm tra giấy tờ. Thì bất ngờ
So this is
thì
just
đối
a
tượng lao vào
simulation,
tấn
but they
công
really
nhằm
do
cướp đi
try to
sinh mạng của chiến sĩ ta để thoát thân.
attack each other.
Với sự can dạ, phán đoán và xử lý nhanh các tình huống, lợi dụng sơ hở của đối tượng bằng các biện pháp pháo
So
thuật
we already
mạnh
got the
mẽ
knife
chính xác
here.
đã bắt đầu tấn công hiểm hóc, khống chế đối tượng, thu hồi vũ khí, đưa về cơ quan công an điều tra xử lý.
Anyway, my point is just there's many ways that you can confront somebody with a knife. You don't have to shoot them. And there are many other countries where such other options are used. One of the reasons for that is that actually there are 19 countries, as I was about to show you before, but I didn't want to show you that soon, where cops don't carry firearms at all, unless the situation merits it. I didn't list all of them because Twitter didn't give me room, but countries like Iceland, Ireland, New Zealand, Norway, the United Kingdom, generally speaking, cops don't carry guns at all. Do you think that nobody attacks anyone with a knife in those countries? Of course, people attack people with knives in those countries, and yet, cops are generally able to deal with situations, just as effectively as in the United States. Only they're not, shooting the suspects. So, just to wrap up, I just want to point out that there are consequences for the resort to firearms first approach of American police. In addition to all the other things we could talk about, racial bias and so forth, there's just simply the fact that police officers in the United States, when they're faced with a situation where, somebody's armed, but even as we've seen with George Floyd and many, many, many other cases, even when people are unarmed, particularly if they're people of color, they get a gun pulled on them by the cops when they're stopped by the cops. And so among wealthier countries, the United States is far and away the highest in terms of the number of people killed by law enforcement in any given year. More than three times as high as Canada, and then countries like the UK, the U.S. is over 60 times as high as the UK, and meanwhile, countries like Iceland and Norway, and I believe Switzerland was another one, where 0 people were killed by the police in the most recent year that we have data for, which was last year, I believe. None. No people killed by the police whatsoever. So, in short, I could be wrong. Certainly, we'll have to see what new information emerges, but I don't believe that the police officer in this situation in Columbus, Ohio, had to use his gun to address the situation, and it's possible that nobody would have died instead of one person being killed on that day. So, something we should be thinking about, I think, because nobody wants to see anybody get killed when there could be a peaceful resolution of a conflict. Okay, well, tell me what you think. Like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel. As I said, I will put the links to some of the things I've been talking about in the description of the video. And I will see you next time.